Okay, well, I thought I'd try my hand at putting together a little on-screen introduction to the new workflow analysis for AMG Country Club Bank. So the first thing that you're going to notice when you approach this is there'll be two new buttons at the top of your screen. One of them is FlashComm for flash communication, and the other one is workflow for the workflow analysis portion. We click the workflow button is how we arrived here. You'll notice that the screen is, we call this the CBC, the Clientbank's Cockpit. This screen is kind of divided into three major sections, and the purpose of this is at a glance to kind of get an idea as to where every bank is in the process for this month's processing of the bank path reports. So the first thing I'll point out to you is the display control. Now this screen will refresh on its own every 120 seconds. So if you see kind of a flicker, that's what's going on. The display control controls what you see down here in the bottom half of this screen. Right now, currently, I've got selected a record date of June 30th of 2015. This happens to be a record date that I have test data for on the development system. And I've also clicked the View All Assignees so that I can show you the status. Normally, when you log into the system, it will only show you things in the bottom half of the system that are assigned to you. Now, you can click the View All Assignees and see the entire system, but most guys will probably want to know, what things were assigned to me and where are they at. The second area is this little box up here on the top right, which is the alerts. Now, the alerts happen when either the system assigns a bank to you or another employee assigns a bank to you, or you assign a bank to yourself. All of those things are possible. We can see right here that I'm logged in currently as Clay Wells for demonstration purposes on the development system. And I can see that Chad Thomas has made an assignment change to me. And I can view this alert. So this is a little message that pops up. And it kind of tells me how this thing how I ended up with this. So it says, ready for review. It was assigned now to myself or for the demo, Clay Wells. It's from Chad Thomas. And the subject is there was an assignment change. And then these are the notes that he typed in here. Now, if I decide to retire the alert, all that means is that I've seen it, I'm aware of it, and I don't want it to sit up there at the top anymore. So I'll retire that alert. I'll go ahead and refresh the page manually, and then you'll see that first alert up there will disappear off the screen. So this is just a good way for you to be aware when something has changed in the system that you need to be aware of. You'll also notice that there's this alerts button. This, no matter what page you're on in the system, this button will appear if there's a pending alert that has not yet been retired. So that little button will show up. You click that button and it'll pull up the alert just like we did from over here in the screen with the view. So that's all it's doing, is it's just popping up and giving you a little information about what it is. You can also limit and say, I only want to see the pending banks that are assigned to me or with a status of pending, or I only want to see the ones that have started loading files or load complete. You get to choose those things that you want to see. You can also do a lookup just by the bank short name. This is an auto suggest box, and it comes up, and then you just click it, and that'll tell you limit the display down here to just the bank that you've chosen, the one that you want to look at. Okay, let's drop down now here to the main part of this, which is where a lot of the and most of the work takes place. The first thing you'll notice is we have the bank ID here, and right next to it we have this little thing called a V-log. And what that does is that kind of shows you kind of the history of what's taken place on that bank. So I'll click one here. Visitor is how it starts out, the initial assignee when the system, on the first day of every month, the system runs through the Clientbank's table and all the banks in the system that are supposed to receive reports that month, and it generates one of these records that we see down here. And when it does that, it creates a log like that and who it's assigned to. And in this case, Chad gets the initial assignment. And it tells us at what time and all that kind of stuff that took place. So that's really just there for historical purposes if you want to kind of find out what's all taken place on a particular bank. This is just the identifier for the bank, the short name. This is the record date that we're currently working on. And then this next column shows us the current status of the bank. So for instance, this first one shows a status of pending. And what that means is that's the initial state that a bank is first put into. That means we haven't loaded any files. We haven't done anything with it right now. It's just sitting there. Then you'll notice down here that this bank is called load complete. There's also loading DB, or a load start state. And what a load start state means is we have at least one file loaded into the database for that bank so far. Load complete means that all required files for that bank have been loaded. And if you'll spin right over to here, here's a little graph that shows you where we're at in the load process on a particular bank. So if I click on that graph, I just clicked on that graph, and it'll show me what files for this record date have been loaded, what the input date was, the record date, the number inserted, errors, so on and so forth, and what those files were. We also have an area here, if there's a required file that we know about that has not yet been loaded, it shows up here in the required input files with no input column. As you can see, this one's completed. And then there's a validate Bloomberg section down here. And what that does is that'll show you any CUSIPs from the investment table for a particular bank that we don't have the Bloomberg data for, like Pass A, Pass F, CMOFL, CMOFX, those type of things for that particular investment. So anyway, that's what all that's kind of giving you a little status of loaded files, where we're at, and where we stand on it. Moving back up here, if I was going to, now you can see that this first one here is assigned to Sean Doherty, and if I'm going to make an assignment and assign that, let's say I want to send that over to Clay Wells, and for him to do it, and you know, you just put in a note, you can process this now, and we'll submit the change. And a couple things will happen when that happens. Okay, so now the next time this page refreshes, we assigned it from Sean Doherty to Clay Wells. And you'll notice now up here in the alerts, you see that, oh, well, there was an assignment change made. And we'll pop up here and we'll take a look, and we can see that you can process this now. I'm going to retire that alert because I'm aware of it. And so now that shows up as a Clay Wells assignee. The next thing over is the start time. Now what the start time does is the first client file that we load, we record the time and we start keeping track of the elapsed time for that particular client as to how long it takes us to process through and process those records. Coming back over here to Country Club Bank, you'll notice this one's in the review state. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop over and I'm going to do the review for that bank. And I've been in messing with this prior to this, I'll tell you. So some of them will be checked down here. So the first thing I want to show you is, as you can see the alerts still show up there. And this is the information from the prior month. This is who did the review from the prior month, what the last email and the last email send time from last month was, who the reviewer was, and then the last sent status. So when we sent this off to them, there's a status associated with it. It'd probably be delivered in most cases. This next section shows you the actual reports that were generated via the Excel programs that you guys use, and you can see that this is a typical thing. Now, it says here we'll show you only the last 15. What we're trying to show here, sometimes when there's an error or a data problem and we have to go back and fix it, we'll show you up to the last 15 reports. We will only distribute to the client the most recent reports of each category that we have to send to them. If I want to look at these reports now, let's say I want to take a look and I want to say, okay, I want to do a little bit of a review on this. So you'll notice now that I click that button, and down here in the bottom left-hand corner, on my browser, different browsers work differently, it showed up. It downloaded that report from the database, and then I can go through and kind of do my review, check tolerances, what's within tolerance levels, what's not, if there's anything kind of out of the ordinary. So that's how I do the review. When I'm completed with categories,